Hi, everyone. It's Carol Williams with Williams Immigration, and we are back for another Monday morning edition of Beyond the Soundbite, where we talk about all things U.S. immigration. Usually, we talk about what's happened in the past week or so, but sometimes, if I think you all really need to know about it, we'll go a little bit beyond that this past week, or certainly if we are following up on something. Because as you know, nothing in immigration these days is moving fairly quickly. So sometimes we are talking about things that go back a little bit further than a week. So, I like to dive right on in. So the first thing, and probably the good news that I have, is visa wait times, non-immigrant visa wait times. Outside Counsel has been asking Department of State, who oversees all the consulates, for a little bit more transparency, especially with the visa wait times, given that some of the non-immigrant applicants are being waived their interview requirement. So we have been asking the Department of State if they could give us the visa wait times a little bit separate so that we can specifically see for those visa categories that are being waived for the interview what those processing times are. So the good news is that the Department of State has now added that to their website. So if you go to that website, you will now see separate breakout processing times, interview times for visitors. So those individuals that are applying for B1, V2, you'll also see them for students and exchange visitors, those folks applying for F, M, or J visas. And some of our work visas are also included. So if you are applying for an H visa, an L, an O, a P, or a Q visa, those are all now specifically broken out in terms of the wait times if you are eligible to have the interview waived. So this is only if you are eligible to have your interview waived at the consulate. You will now see specific breakout times for your ability to get that interview and get it scheduled. So I, for one, am super happy about that. It was a little bit of a mystery as to how long it was taking for people at consulates across the world to see how long, how early really they could get their visa scheduled, their visa appointment scheduled if they didn't have an interview. So even if you do not need an interview, it's a great site to use. So if you have any questions about, scheduling your visa appointment, let me know. But understand and please remember that every single consulate works a little bit differently given their local rules. The visa information is super helpful, but just understand that just because, your friend may be getting a visa in one country and you may be applying for a visa in another country, the process will certainly have some similarities, but it will most definitely have some differences. So please make sure that you check the consulate website for specifics. And if you are having trouble getting your visa scheduled or understanding what that visa, the wait times are, feel free to reach out to our office and we are happy to help you with that. More along the visa backlog, I've been getting a ton of questions about that in my practice. So I wanted to help you guys out with that. The Department of State, and we talked about this last week, the Department of State has said that non-immigrant visa applicants, including students, sometimes students are excluded, but this time they are not. So non-immigrant visa applicants, including students, may apply for their visa at any consulate or embassy where they are physically present and they can obtain a visa appointment. So sometimes that will be very helpful. I do caution you because it is harder for a consular officer in a consulate that is not your home country consulate to evaluate the documents. So let's say you are an Indian national, you happen to be in Canada, you are applying for a visa in Canada. It is much easier for an immigration officer at a consulate in India to evaluate your documents. They have been at those consulates for a few years. They know what the documents should look like in India versus an officer in Canada. So if you are thinking about applying at a consulate for a visa that is not your home country consulate, I would strongly recommend that you have a conversation with an immigration attorney before you do that. Also, some consulates, it's much harder to get an appointment there, even if you are physically present there in their jurisdiction. So a lot of things come into play when we are looking at sending, especially my clients, out to a consulate that is not their home country. But just know that the Department of State has in fact said that non-immigrant visa applicants, including students, may apply for a visa where they are physically present and where they can obtain an appointment. So keep that in mind. That is one more thing that we are able to use. We have certainly heard some grumblings about E2 visa applicants who have had a somewhat tough time at a consulate when they are applying for an E2 visa. The E2 visa is typically processed, the entire application is typically processed at a consulate. And so those consular officers typically only deal with the E2, so they are very familiar with the E2 category and the requirements. So our E2 folks are folks that are starting businesses here in the United States. We know that there needs to be a treaty between the US and that country that specifically allows for an E2 status. Recently, we have seen some challenges with consular officers taking issue with and asking more questions about businesses that received PPP loans during COVID, so during the past couple of years for COVID. That was brought up to the Department of State at headquarters, and their response was essentially that from headquarters, they have not issued any sort of worldwide guidance for all of the consulates to look into PPP loan issuance and for that to negatively impact a visa application. So the PPP loans are not an automatic deal killer when it comes to applying for an E2 visa at a consulate. It is but one piece of evidence that is used. So if you have received a PPP loan and it is about time now for you to go back to the consulate and apply for another E2 visa, and you're not quite sure how that PPP loan will be evaluated at the consulate, you're afraid that it will have a negative impact at the consulate, I highly, highly recommend that you have a conversation with an immigration lawyer who can look at your business from a business perspective as well as from an immigration perspective and determine how that PPP loan may be viewed by the consulate. But there is no blanket rule that says if your business applied for and received a PPP loan that you will now automatically have a request for additional evidence or be denied for your visa application. So just keep that in mind. It is but one factor that they will evaluate, but it is not an automatic deal killer. The next thing I want to talk with y'all about is the COVID-19 vaccination. It is still required for green card applications. It is a part of the medical form. So if you are applying for a green card, whether you're inside the United States or outside the United States, and you will be going through the consulate, you will still need to show that you have received those vaccinations. The individuals that are exempt from the vaccination are individuals that are too young to receive the vaccination based on the medical data, individuals who have medical contraindications to receiving the vaccination, meaning that they will have some potential harmful impact if they receive the vaccination, or individuals who currently live in an area where the approved vaccinations are not routinely available. So again, if you have questions about applying for your green card and how that links in with the COVID-19 vaccination, feel free to call our office at 954-903-1337. We're more than happy to have a conversation with you about that. And really, the last thing this morning that I wanted to talk about is the TPS. We have had some extensions, and I want y'all to know in general which countries right now have TPS designation. So we have seen some TPS, we've seen some automatic extensions of your TPS documentation. Immigration knows that they are, again, under severe backlogs. It is taking them longer to process documents such as EADs. So they have now put out a notice regarding automatic extension for individuals from El Salvador, Haiti, Nicaragua, Sudan, Honduras, and Nepal. So if you're from one of those countries, your documents for TPS have been automatically extended through June 30th of 2024. So your current expiration date will be reading December 31st of this year, 2022. There is now an automatic extension to June 30th, 2024. And so in terms of what countries all now currently have TPS, as of May of this year, so as of May of 2022, the following countries are designated for TPS, and that is Afghanistan, El Salvador, Burma, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, Ukraine, Venezuela, and Yemen. And the other one last thing I want to talk about also talks about consulates. We've had a very consulate heavy discussion this morning, but the Department of State announced that the U.S. consulate in Havana, Cuba, will resume full operations for immigrant visa processing beginning January 4th of next year, so January 4th of 2023. That will include immediate relative applications, family preference applications, diversity visa, and our K-1 fiance visa categories. So that is all I have this beautiful Monday morning. If you have any questions about your specific immigration case, you are hiring an individual, you want to know what's the right visa category, if you have any questions about your immigration cases, please feel free to give my office a call. We are happy to chat. I am Carol Williams. The office number is 954-903-1337. Have a great Monday morning and a fabulous rest of your week. Bye.